I know this might sound crazy, but in many ways, the world into which Jesus was born 2,000 years ago was not very different than ours today. It was a world of chaos, a world marked by political turmoil and social unrest, personal struggles. It was a dark world, one that caused some to wonder, is God really real? Does he actually care, if he is real, about the current state of the world? And if he was powerful to do all things, is he powerful enough to change anything now? In the midst of all this chaos, though, there was this divine promise that echoed through the ages. It was the words of the prophet Isaiah foretelling the arrival of a Prince of Peace who would rule with a kind of peace that was so total, so comprehensive, that it would be beyond understanding. Now, when we think of peace, we often define it simply as the absence of fighting. But biblically, peace is more than just the absence of conflict. Coming from the Old Testament concept of shalom, peace was the absence of conflict plus the presence of God's blessing. It was a peace that came from complete wholeness, a peace where nothing was lacking. And it's the arrival of this kind of peace that was among the first things declared on that first Christmas day. In Luke 2, verse 14, the angels who announced Jesus' birth said, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, on whom his favor rests." That first Christmas, the purpose of Jesus' incarnation was shouted from the heavens. Jesus came to bring a peace, the kind of peace that had the power to change a person's life. And there are so many examples from Jesus' ministry that illustrate this, but I think Mark 5 contains a collection of stories that illustrate this truth as well as any place in the Bible. There we read 3 eyewitness stories that take place in a single 24-hour period that have a common thread running through them all that's really important not to miss. The first story centers around a demon-possessed man who's been tortured and abandoned, left alone to die in a desolate place. But after an encounter with Jesus, the demons are gone, he's sitting calmly, and he's in his right mind. Now, considering his previous life of uncontrolled chaos, everyone who witnessed it was astonished at the peace of the moment. In the second story, a synagogue ruler named Jairus, whose 12-year-old daughter was sick and about to die, runs up to Jesus and begs for help. He was not previously a believer in Jesus, but he was desperate, and a desperate father will do just about anything for his daughter. As a father of a daughter myself, I can only imagine his anguish as he begs Jesus to follow him home to try to heal his daughter. But on the way home, word comes that the daughter has died. Undeterred, Jesus continues on to the house, and upon his arrival, he immediately raises the child back to life. The people who witnessed this were astonished at the turnaround from death to life, from a moment of chaos to a moment of peace. The third story involves a woman who actually interrupted Jesus on the way to Jairus' house. She literally shoved her way through the crowd to get to Jesus. She'd been sick for 12 years, and as a result had been separated from society, virtually quarantined from people because of her condition. She's broke, she's in pain, she's desperate, and she sneaks up on Jesus, forces her way through the crowd, and touches his garment, hoping to be healed. And immediately after touching Jesus, her bleeding stopped. She felt in her body that she was free from her previous suffering, and she was at peace in a way that she had never experienced before in her life. It was just like the angels had declared at his birth. There is peace in the presence of Jesus. But can we all just be real for a moment? Sometimes that peace feels a long way away from our own reality. Reality seems very chaotic. Maybe it's financial chaos or family chaos or job or political or health chaos, but presently peace seems almost inaccessible. That's why I love this grouping of stories. They don't just tell us what's true, they show us what to do to go find that truth and realize it in our own lives. They don't just tell a story of what has been, they tell a story of what could be for you and me. They show us how that same kind of peace is realized in our lives. Now, I told you there was a thread that connects each of these stories, so here it is. In each story, the person in chaos fell at Jesus' feet. And it was that posture of desperation and humility that ushered in the peace that transformed their life. Mark records all 3 times that this happened. In Mark 5, verse 6 of the demon-possessed guy, it says that he saw Jesus from a distance. He ran and he fell on his knees in front of him. It's said of Jairus in Mark 5:22 that he came, and when he saw Jesus, he also fell at his feet. And of the woman in Mark 5:33, that when Jesus felt the power leave his body, he turned around to say, "Who touched me?" And she fell on her knees before him and told the truth and said, "It was me that did." Each of their testimonies teach us an important truth about the peace that Jesus offers. His peace is available for those who fall on their knees before him and let him in through the cracks of their brokenness. In each story, each person came incredibly close to Jesus, vulnerable. Instead of pushing Jesus away, or covering up their real needs, they bared it all and let him have access to the deepest, most disappointing areas of their lives. And they were all changed because of it. Their lives never to be the same. And look, I don't know where you find yourself this Christmas. I don't know what struggles or anxieties or fears or pains create the chaos in your life. But here's what I do know. I know that the good news came to our world 2,000 years ago in the person of Jesus. And I know that when we come to him broken and desperate, his peace descends on our lives. I've lived it myself. I've experienced it myself. I remember finding myself in the same spot as the people in these 3 stories. Broken, sinful, selfish, desperate. I remember finding myself in the same spot as the shepherds who heard the announcement of Jesus and the announcement of peace. Having heard the good news about him, they ran to him to see if what was said about him was actually true. They moved closer to the manger where Jesus was to see if what they had heard was actually true. Let me ask you a question then. Would you be willing to do the same? Having heard this claim that peace is available, would you do the same? What I'm saying is that today you can have peace in Jesus. You can have peace with God. You can find it today. But will you? Because it starts on your knees, broken and vulnerable before him. It's a posture he won't reject. It's a humility he'll always honor with grace. But that response is yours and yours alone. So if you find yourself searching for peace this Christmas, look no further than Jesus. If you've had hopes of getting that perfect gift, look no further than Jesus. He offers a gift that completes you in a way that nothing else can or ever will. 2,000 years ago, against the backdrop of great chaos, God came in the flesh and he lived among us. He lived like us and he died for us. We didn't deserve it, but he did it because of his great love. And that's the good news that's brought great peace to those who have opened the gift that is a relationship with him. This will always be the most important thing about Christmas. How will you respond to God's greatest gift? My prayer for you is that you would open it up every day. Open it up because the peace of God awaits.